Recently, Venezuela held their general election, which is actually pretty surprising considering that their leader is a communist dictator, Maduro. Um, what's not surprising is that after the fair elections that looked like apparently Maduro lost, he just came out and said, nope, sorry. Didn't lose. Here's actually the vote totals. The exit polls are saying something like that he lost. I think 60. The opponent was 60%. He was around 33%. And then a few hours later, Maduro came out and published something where he was 51. I think the opponent was something like 48 or something very close. And I've seen things on Twitter and elsewhere where they're saying that it was the amounts didn't even add up from what he published. It ended up being something like 115% of the vote, which obviously is not possible. And I did pull up a few things from Twitter. Really interesting stuff going on. This is really new. Looking into this today. Not sure when this will be published, but as I'm looking into it, um, he just came out. Maduro came out against Elon Musk, saying Musk is like one of his new arch enemy. Pretty fascinating that a South African man who owns a company primarily based in the U.S. is the greatest enemy to a dictator in Venezuela. Shows you how our world works. Pretty bizarre, to be honest. Um, but yeah, interesting because I think what's happening is of course Maduro isn't happy with exactly how Twitter is letting people see the truth in Venezuela. And I'll give you a couple scenes that I've seen go around so far on X, which is of course the platform hosted by Elon Musk. Elon Musk has also himself shared several videos of what's going on in Venezuela. And in this one, you see him saying, Adios, dictatora Maduro. So see you later, dictator Maduro. And in this scene, you can see the people of Venezuela pulling down statues of Hugo Chavez. This is happening all over the country. There are huge riots right now all over Venezuela. There are even videos where you can see the military, the police throwing down their arms and joining the protesters, refusing to stand up against the people as the people rise up against this communist dictatorship. And really, it made me wonder. I mean, first of all, I hope it all ends up well in Venezuela and that the people get justice and have a fair election, even though, I'm not the biggest fan of democracy. It's certainly better than a communist dictatorship that will not allow for elections, will not allow the people to have a voice. But this is what happens, though. If you have a dictatorship that will not allow a free and fair election, then, well, what can you do to get rid of this dictator other than rise up? Now, clearly, Catholic teaching is that revolution is generally an evil. So rising up against lawful authority, even if it's bad, evil authority is generally considered to be un-Catholic. Now, there are exceptions if they are, if you're being truly persecuted or if it's a truly evil regime, then I believe it is at times allowed. I got to be careful speaking for the church, but I know that there are times when you can rise up if you're being, unfairly put down. And in any communist system, that is absolutely bound to happen because it is anti-God, anti-Catholicism, and speaking of, as I said earlier in many shows, that they hate us. They really hate you. I mean, communism, the communist dictators are really almost the worst evil we've ever seen on planet Earth. I mean, up there. You're talking about hundreds of millions of people killed by communist dictators, and that's in the last 100 years. So you're talking Genghis Khan levels of destruction, and that is because they're just simply evil. And I wanted to read real quickly. I'm not going to share my screen because it was a little too hard to do that on this encyclical. Quadragesimo Anno from May 15th, 1931. Written by Pope Pius XI. I'm just going to take out a few sections of it. It's very long. But if anyone has any questions about communism or socialism and the church's feelings on that, the Catholic Church, go read that encyclical. It's pretty hard to get through. I kind of skimmed through it and found a couple pieces I liked, so I'm going to read those real quickly. So this is again Quadragesimo Anno from Pius XI. Quote, one section of socialism has undergone almost the same change that the capitalistic and economic system, as we have explained above, has undergone. It has sunk into communism. Communism teaches and seeks two objectives: unrelenting class warfare and absolute extermination of private ownership. Not secretly or by hidden methods does it do this, but publicly, openly, and by employing every and all means, even the most violent. Breaking real quickly from this, I've also seen videos of the military, some of the military who's still with Maduro, of course, in Venezuela, firing on the public demonstrators. Back to the encyclical. To achieve these objectives, there is nothing which it does not dare, nothing for which it has respect or reverence. And when it has come to power, it is incredible and portent-like in its cruelty and in inhumanity. The horrible slaughter and destruction through which it has laid waste vast regions of Eastern Europe and Asia are the evidence. How much an enemy and how openly hostile it is to Holy Church and to God himself is, alas, too well proved by facts and fully known to all. Although we, therefore, deem it superfluous to warn upright and faithful children of the Church regarding the impious and iniquitous character of communism, yet we cannot, without deep sorrow, contemplate the heedlessness of those who apparently make light of these impending dangers, and with sluggish inertia allow the widespread propagation of doctrine which seeks by violence and slaughter to destroy society altogether. All the more gravely to be condemned is the folly of those who neglect to remove or change the conditions that inflame the minds of peoples and pave the way for the overthrow and destruction of society. That's the end of that portion. I'm gonna read just again. Kind of, this was towards the end of the encyclical Quadragesimo Anno from Pius XI. Quote, and so, venerable brethren and beloved sons, having surveyed the present economic system, we have found it laboring under the gravest of evils. We've also summoned communism and socialism again to judgment and have found all their forms, even the most modified, to wander far from the precepts of the gospel. So, clear what the Catholic Church thinks of communism, socialism, modern socialism, and I think there were ways socialism was used in the past that were not evil. It depends on how you use the term, but as we know the word now, and this is mentioned quite a lot in the encyclical, which again is quite long. The socialism was not always an evil, but as we know it today, as the word means, it has become so because it is primarily communistic, and that is of course what's going on in Venezuela, which is fascinating because of course Venezuela was one of the richest and most Catholic countries, even just a few decades ago. It shows you that if you blink and you're not careful enough, this is what happens. If we good people don't stand up and vote and act and tell our friends and family that we cannot let this happen, the communists cannot win. And ladies and gentlemen, you're looking at Kamala Harris. She is communist. She's a communist. Of course, she doesn't have that printed next to her name. But look at what she does. Look at how she treats the people, or how she treated the people in California. Her agendas are farther left wing than Bernie Sanders. At least that's what pundits say. I'm no expert on the matter. That's incredible, and that's something that we have to consider. We have to. Now, does that mean the extreme of the other side, capitalism, free market, are they perfect? Are they good even? Debatable. But there's no question that they're better. And again, you can read that in this encyclical. These are not condemned, while communism is. And if we don't want to happen what's happening right now in Venezuela, we got to shape up. We got to get out there. We have to start talking about this very seriously. I know a lot of you don't want to vote for Donald Trump. That I'm not going to force you. Of course, I never could, and especially morally. It's not my job. But I do think we need to take it very seriously because the alternative to the orange bad man is communism. It is. We've already seen them tearing down statues of American heroes, or at the very least of American historical figures. That's what communism does. They destroy their opponents. So isn't there a famous I think it was Stalin, wasn't it, who had a picture with some of the Russian leadership, and it started with, say, 5 of them, and then slowly he started to snip out the ones who he hated or had changed his mind on or had probably had killed. So communism, they don't just kill their opponents, they try to eliminate them from all history, because they actually also think longer term than we do. It's another one of the weird things that these communists, these Masons, the JOOSs, they have a longer vision, I think, than Catholics, which I think is a shame. I think we're I don't even know, are we selfish? I don't know what the problem is. Why do we just turn a blind eye to all of these things? Now, of course, our most important part in life is to save our own souls and those of our family. But that's not it. That's not all. The popes command us to take part in our civic duties. Command us. Let's not forget it. Let's not forget it, unless we want to end up like Venezuela. And let's pray for Venezuela, the people of Venezuela, that they, without bloodshed, never want bloodshed. We don't want violent insurrections. We don't want violent revolutions. Nobody wants that. Maybe they can get Maduro and ship him off to a little island somewhere. Because it should not be allowed that communist dictators can just control a country because they want to. Great evils will come from that. So in my opinion, not speaking for anyone else, not speaking for the church for sure, my opinion is you do probably have to rise up. Stand up and say no. And that's going to happen in the US soon, this fall. Stand up and say no. Even if it's your local elections, fine. That's a start. Stand up and say no. We will not anymore have this alphabet soup, LGBTIS, whatever, in our schools. We're not going to have it on our streets. We're not going to have it on the internet. Got to stand up for this stuff because that is our duty as Catholics.